Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast. And find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 2 of season 9, The Witch's Familiar. The Doctor is faced with his greatest temptation. Can he resist? And will there be mercy? This episode is written by Stephen Moffat, directed by Hetty MacDonald. It originally aired on the 26th of September 2015 and was originally watched by 5.71 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
I am a Dalek. I'm a Dalek.
I'm not a witch, I'm your wife. Oh, it's Kelsey.
Hi, this is Josh.
Hi, this is Brian.
Hello, this is Frank.
While Clara hangs upside down by a rope, Missy tells her a classic story of the Doctor. He's alone and on the run from assassins. It's a no-win scenario. So she asks Clara, how did he survive? Clara correctly works it out, because she knows the Doctor always believes there is an escape. Missy is very pleased and cuts her down. She asks, then why did he write a will this time? What's different? In Davros's chamber, the Doctor grabs a Dalek gun and orders Davros to get out. A moment later, the Doctor arrives in the command room, sitting in Davros's chair. The Daleks try to kill him, but he is protected by the chair's shields. He presents his demand, bring him Clara Oswald alive and unharmed. Suddenly, snakes from Colony Sarf emerge from the chair and tie him up. Later, Davros taunts the Doctor with the notion that using the energy cables in the room, he could wipe out every Dalek in Skaro, genocide by choice. But the Doctor won't, because he has compassion.
Well, that's a lot that happened. Okay.
Well, first off, I have a question. Where did Missy get the rope?
Yeah, again, like I said last episode, it kind of just whatever.
Figure on the inside.
No, but it's also a play on where do you get the cup of tea.
Yeah, I think
just
that's
funny.
Yeah, maybe that is a thing. It's sort of like, Time Lord pockets. She has her stuff that she needs when she. Rope is something that anyone who adventures should have. So if she has, Time Lord technological pockets, then she's got plenty of stuff somewhere. It's like Marge.
So she has a towel in there.
Yeah, it's like Marge Simpson's hair.
I was a little kind of disappointed with last episode's ending with this episode's beginning. I feel like it's too exposition-y as far as how the Doctor and Missy and Clara got away from being what looked like disintegrated. So I was like, oh, you didn't even... Those are new shots from the Doctor. They weren't shots from or scenes from the previous episode that was told in black and white.
Yeah,
Right,
it's a bit Sherlock. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Oh, it's a story. It's a story. Like, did it happen to the 12th Doctor? It could have happened to any of his regenerations. Missy just was like, oh, let's assign it to eyebrows, because that's who you know, Clara. But the story is just a story. It may not even be true.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get that, and I'm thinking to myself, if this had been done with a previous Doctor, like we had seen a flashback of Tom Baker doing the same thing, that to me would have been it would have sat better with me. Well, because I'm thinking of the example where Clara jumps through the time stream and sees every Doctor. They took the time to kind of do that. Like, why didn't you make it the Doctor in every instance of this flashback? That would have been cool.
But they had multiple Doctors. You still had Tom Baker. So to me, I'm with Kelsey going, okay, this is a story about the Doctor, and all of them are the same to Missy. We all divide them up.
I'm definitely glad that you guys liked it. It's just, I don't know why I don't like it. So in this case, you both win.
No,
I always
we're not
thought
winning.
I always thought Missy was making the story up.
Where was the Doctor first heading? Do you remember that? I thought it was a bookshop. I thought she said Missy was telling Clara, here's the story. The Doctor was going somewhere and ended up where he had to
50 assassins.
I could look it up right now because I have it in front of me.
Yeah, me
It's just
too.
when they said that, sorry, in the other little added one, it's just, isn't that what she said at the beginning with Clara for the next episode? It sounded very familiar to me, but I didn't have time to go back and look.
Yeah,
It's
I
what
didn't pick up on it.
it's what the doctor said to Davros, young Davros, that he was looking for a bookshop.
Well, that's where it was.
So if they said it here, that would have been a cool connection.
Yeah, nice tie back.
Okay, that could be where it was. It just it sounded so familiar somehow. Okay.
And then this sort of
Because she just
explains-
she says, the doctor trapped, the doctor alone. In other words, the doctor happy. And then on the run, no TARDIS, no friends, no help.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a long time ago. I don't think, it was a
is.
long time ago. It doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter which doctor. So she doesn't say what he was doing.
Okay.
It's just a generic, except that he has a teleporter, which ties it into why she's telling this story, because that's what she did to get them out.
And that explains what happened with her in Death in Heaven at the end of last season.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, you could have explained that to us in the first episode, but you decided to wait for the second episode.
You needed that cliffhanger of, oh no, they've been killed.
Yeah, but again, going back to what we said about the Master's just going to find a way to get out of it. So
Right.
Yeah, but still,
I would have, as my classic Who sort of brain would have been like, oh, that explanation is for Missy. I don't think I would have associated that with Clara's being teleported.
But we would have had a week where Clara was dead before she came back. Sorry, Clara.
But like the beginning of the previous episode, here Clara's intelligent. She figures it out. So that's consistent. And later on, it just bugs me that they play her down.
Yeah,
That she's no
and
longer
upside down,
intelligent.
and she's upside down. Anything else on
Again,
this?
I do like the writing with Missy and how she relates to Clara, because it is, again, like a shadow side of how the Doctor treats humans. Like the Doctor has respect for humans, but he also, they're a lower place compared to him. And so Missy just takes that to the next level with Clara, as we'll see like even later. But just like the continued use of Clara as like an object without her own agency, and then it continues, and I think they do it to good comic effect throughout. But I really enjoy Missy messing with Clara in all the ways that she does.
Yeah, I definitely get this feeling all the way back with Saxon, and his wife was the companion back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a different way of how these quote-unquote superior beings treat the humans on this planet. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
It's also an interesting notion that basically, since they used Clara as the Doctor in the last episode because the Doctor was someplace else doing not necessarily Doctor things. And now in this episode, same thing with the Doctor. So it's like Missy has taken over that job, and now Clara is Missy's companion.
Yeah.
Like story-wise, they always need the Doctor to be like kind of like an investigator soldier, and Clara was that with the unit in the first one because the Doctor was doing that other thing. So it's like we have like certain tent poles or a bullet list of things that have to be checked every episode for this to be Doctor Who. And if the Doctor can't do them, they have to give it to someone else. It's just interesting how when the Doctor can't fulfill some of those roles, they give it to other characters in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want,
Eugene, I really like that parallel. Sorry, Eugene, I like that parallel you had of the other master and how he was able to manipulate. You can see that with Clara, but Clara's been around enough where she gets it, but she's still being manipulated a lot.
yeah.
But you just, to me, it's like, wow, that really empathizes with his wife of what she went through to get to that point. It's just, thank you for putting that in. I think that ties it in really well.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting notion that you don't really realize at first that, yes, Claire is aware that Missy has an ulterior motive, but what it ends up being, she couldn't have fathomed. So it's like, it's hard. It's like you can only keep an eye out so much, but you can't keep an eye out for something that you're not even aware exists. And I think that's why she was so easily duped in that moment. And she's such a charming presence that she wins you over.
Missy.
But also, I thought it was interesting that they load
Missy,
jacked.
yes, Missy.
I thought it was interesting that they kind of, low jacked Davros's chair and not
Yeah.
Davros.
Yeah, yeah.
He's coming. He's leaving the infirmary.
That was a
No,
little
his
disturbing
chair
to
is
see
leaving.
that,
Yeah.
with like him half no left hand and no like lower half of his torso. It reminded me of RoboCop 2 when they dismantle him and they just throw him in the front of the police office and he's just like squirming around. Oh, it's weird.
I
Probably
thought
the board queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. The part of it that got disturbed me a little bit was his little spine kind of like wagging at the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Like what's the doctor say when he's like in the chair? This is your worst nightmare.
Yeah,
Can anyone
to the
concur?
Daleks.
Admit it.
Yeah.
Admit it. This is your worst
Your
nightmare.
worst nightmare. And mine. I think he adds, and mine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Did we like that? Was that?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Him moving around in Davros's chair reminded me of Classic Who, where Davros was like really booking it in the last one we did.
Yeah, yeah.
He believes Clara's alive. It's like, does he believe it? Does he hope it? Or did he plan for her to be alive? Is that why he gave Missy the confession dial? To protect Clara, knowing that no matter what the mistress would do to Clara, she wouldn't kill her because of her relationship to the doctor, because Missy's relationship to her frenemy. It just sort of...
I think,
Go ahead, Josh.
I think he's unsure because he sure as hell got angry. He wouldn't threaten as much. I think he was in kind of planning for what you were just saying, but he's still unsure.
I also kind of think he's saying it in a way of bring me Clara alive. Not because he hopes Clara's alive, but to put the fear of a Time Lord into the Daleks, and the Daleks better hope she's alive. If this was a trick, give her to me now, otherwise you're going to get it. Missy and Clara enter the Dalek sewers that can take them into the city. These sewers contain the still alive remnants of ancient Daleks. Missy sets off an alarm, and a healthy Dalek responds. The decaying Daleks are pretty angry, so they destroy it. Missy tells Clara to get in the now empty Dalek shell. Once inside, she discovers that the words she says are being translated into Dalek speak. Saying her name comes out as I am a Dalek, and love comes out as exterminate.
I will say, for as much as I rag on Moffat's run, this was a great insight into how the Daleks behave and translate.
Mm-hmm.
I did
love
like
it.
that.
Yeah, see this. I didn't like this either.
I hate this scene. I like the sewers. I'm like, oh, that's interesting and creepy, and but then the Daleks speak. I'm a little like, oh, come on, like it's almost too much. I'm like, because as a fan now, I'm like retro or what's the word? Retrofitting it all. And I'm like, so this whole time, this is what they've been saying?
What I like about that, no, it's not necessarily been saying I love you or this, that, the other. It's because I've always been slightly annoyed at the cheesiness of the way that the Daleks speak. And to me, this explains that they have a limited vocabulary filter that anything that they think or say goes through. So all we hear is exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. And they may be having more complex thoughts, not necessarily good thoughts, but complex thoughts going on. But that doesn't matter because all in the end, it just means exterminate. So that to me explains the cheesiness of these robots just running around yelling, exterminate, exterminate, exterminate.
And the reason for my liking it, to expand on it more, is that Davros was the one to create this out of a war. So it was a necessity that the sort of Kaled race bought into. So in order to win this war, we're going to have to turn our people into these killing machines. So
That's a good
initially
point.
you go into the Dalek shell and you may be fighting it because this is new to you, but as soon as, like, it takes time for the conditioning to happen where you say, I am Clara, now being verbally said, I am a Dalek. Pretty soon you're not saying I am Clara. You are now thinking in your head, I am a Dalek, and then what becomes outside is now what's internal. So it's kind of like fake it till you make it, but in like a different conditioning way. So that's how I kind of
Yeah.
rationalized it.
That's even more interesting because it's basically like, if I'm going to turn you into soldiers, I'm going to take away your free speech.
Yeah.
And then you won't really be able to communicate with each other more than the way I want you to.
Mm-hmm.
And also the translation for me is that they're bred to hate. So that's the only emotion. So any emotion, I love you, whatever comes out, exterminate, because that's the emotional word of hate. So I think that's tied in. And Kelsey, I'm pretty much the opposite of you on this one, because I hate this.
Hate the sewer part.
Not only are they somewhat alive, they're still cognizant of what's going on because they can attack.
Oh yeah, no, it's awful. It's awful. But I thought it was interesting world building. Like it's an interesting level to the Dalek race.
It is, but it seems to lessen that episode Dalek with Eccleston. It wants to die, and it just sort of, that was such a great episode that it seemed when this happened, it never reached what it wanted. It never died. It just made it even sadder. It's ingrained in their DNA that they won't die. So no matter where they are, they will not die. Here, the sewers just collect. They just, decompose and go out.
They were just lied to, I guess.
Right, but at that end of the Dalek episode, he just wants to die in peace. So that it was really, I like that episode a lot. So at this point, it's like they robbed me of that. They changed it where, oh, that's horrible. It's like, when did that come to be?
I think we've seen enough different Daleks, even though they always claim to be genetically pure, we've seen different versions and things.
It's very true. Yeah.
I would, allow those stories to live separately together and both be true.
I did that, and I do that. I definitely get that point because they have changed. And so I'm thinking, well, this is the modern Dalek. That's over 1,000, however they've been. But the originals were actual different people. Then there were copies of Davros, and then they were added on and just stuck in there from other races. So I get it. And that's the way I rationalize it, so I can still, be with it. But it's still one thing when I first watched it. I didn't like them changing that or adding that.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah, because when you brought that up, it reminded me of that Voyager episode when I think it's Neelix that dies for a little bit and he doesn't go to his promised land.
Yeah,
and he wakes up thinking I've been lied to. So that's what I thought of, Frank, when you brought up the lone Dalek in Eccleston's episode, is that he was sort of lied to. If this is the same species of Daleks.
Right.
Which is what Alburn's bringing up, in that they can all sort of exist. These are all different, let's say, sects of Dalekism.
Yeah, we also see that in their casing, is that they had different ones throughout time. So it's like, okay, I am separating him or it from it, but it's just that concept came in and it's like, okay, I don't like that idea that Daleks cannot die.
That's something new that I guess Moffat added, which goes to serve the story and the plot of this episode as opposed to the overall arching canon of Skaro and Daleks.
We haven't really mentioned the correlation between Clara's first appearance on the show and in this episode she's being put into a Dalek. Well, I was wondering the first time I was watching it if that was going to hook up somehow origin wise, but I don't mind that it didn't, but I was very compelled by it.
And
remember, this is a different Clara than the
I know
souffle girl. Yeah.
But who knows?
I get you.
But even if it's not part of the story correlation, then I really enjoy Jenna Coleman as these characters, and then that was her first appearance, and now this is happening to her. It harkens back to it.
To be the last appearance would have been great bookend.
Yes, it would have bookended it, but still, I thought it was pretty cool.
And it's also not the last time we see her shoved into a extremely confining space. And the next time it's like, what? Do you hate Jenna Coleman and you want to shove her into a claustrophobic setting to film?
Well, she's very tiny. Maybe they do it because it's easy. Where can we put her? Where would you trap her? We can put her in a box, put her in a toaster oven.
But I thought it was very hilarious the way Missy determined that the drop to the sewers was 20 feet by just pushing Clara. It was that was great comedic timing on Michelle Gomez's part.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah,
is
that-
where she has fun when she's killing the Dalek, and she's doing it, and she's just yelling in a American Southern accent.
Mhm.
You know, it's just, I'm reveling in harming people. This is just fun.
It's golf.
It's golf.
This is where I think Misty also mentions that she had a daughter,
Yeah.
and that the brooch is made of a dark star alloy, which the Doctor gave her as a present.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that I don't mind, because that's just stuff we kind of have no canonical things on. So it's okay to bring that stuff in where
Yeah, it's
stuff
world building.
Yeah, where the Dalek stuff is a little like, no, we've established certain things. Anyway.
Oh, I wanted to talk about the clever people. And I think that happened at the beginning of this episode where they're talking about like how the Doctor escaped. Oh, he's clever. And then Missy's like, there's lots of clever people. It doesn't mean that. I love killing clever people. They make the best faces. And I'm like, oh, does that mean that Missy takes on, when she regenerates, she'll regenerate into someone that she's killed?
Oh, I took that as
I thought,
the impression that they were making, not their actual face. But that's a good
Oh.
point.
oh.
Yeah, they make the best expressions when I kill them.
Oh my gosh, that's much darker, almost.
That's
Yeah.
how I
than
took
what
it.
That's how I took it. Yeah.
I will say, and since we're in the middle of this episode now, that I feel this episode has a more consistent tone than the last one. I think that what I was
Yeah.
saying in our last episode, jumping between comedy and drama. I guess the last one, the last third of it was pretty consistent, but this one felt like more of a cohesive episode.
I can see that.
Funniest
All right.
line in the whole thing. The Davros gives the Doctor the greatest honor he can get on Skaros. The only other chair.
The only other chair. Yeah. So speaking of clever, I thought that was one of the most clever lines I've heard on the show ever. Would have been maybe
Right.
they could have like had it like full of dust.
Right.
Davros and the Doctor continue to match wits. Davros says they have gone beyond simple communication since they've both killed billions of their people. The Doctor tells him that his people are alive. He saved Gallifrey. Surprisingly, Davros is happy for him. Everyone deserves a place to belong. As tears form, Davros opens his eye and tells him to keep the Time Lords safe. They even share a good laugh. The Doctor tries to give Davros a tiny bit of regeneration energy by grabbing the energy cables. But Sarf's snakes are there to take over. It's a trap. Now Davros is stealing all of the Doctor's energy. His compassion has been his downfall. Across the planet, Daleks begin to glow with regeneration energy. Missy is furious and goes to find the Doctor, followed by a confused Clara Dalek. Davros monologues about Gallifreyan legend of a hybrid made from two great powers, and that legend is coming true. Missy arrives and destroys the energy cables, ending the transfer, but the Daleks have rebooted with more power.
I despise this scene.
This is the first mention of the hybrid, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And
We
the
keep
hybrid
talking
is
about that.
this season's silence, which constantly change in meaning throughout the
Yeah.
rest of it all. You're the
Yeah, I
hybrid.
guess.
No, you're the hybrid.
Yeah, that's true. It does do that, doesn't it?
Because, I mean, this reminds me of Daleks in Manhattan, where there was a hybrid Dalek then, but it wasn't the two great powers of the Time Lords and the Daleks.
Mm.
It was the humans and the Daleks.
Yeah, some jamoke from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Because I think they later on explain a little bit more of the story where it's two warring races or two great warring, and humans are definitely warring race. So I think it
Yeah.
fits for Manhattan.
Yeah, but I don't know. When I think of Doctor Who as a whole, I think of like the Daleks and the Time Lords, but then also the Daleks came out from two warring races as well. So is there a Thal and a Kaled hybrid? I don't know.
This is where you can start to go back and try to deconstruct and all these things. It's almost like not even worth the effort.
So you're
I
saying we
thought the-
shouldn't have a podcast? Is that what you're saying?
when I was watching it, I was thinking that because his regeneration energy is now, infiltrating
Yeah.
all of the Daleks, so they are all becoming a hybrid, part-time Lord and part Dalek. So basically, he thought, and always, I did everything I could to destroy all the Daleks because they are the enemy, and that right now I thought the regeneration energy was making them part Time Lord, and then he realized, oh, I actually like. I thought he was kind of creating a paradox where they were always a hybrid. So when he destroyed all the Daleks, he actually destroyed even more Time Lords because they were part Time Lord.
And linear, I was thinking they weren't affected because they happened before this, so it didn't go back in time.
Right, but because we were already going back to when he created Davros, I thought the episode wasn't over yet, and I didn't know if this was going to create some sort of grandfather paradox sort of thing.
Yeah, I can see that train of thought.
That's a lot of times where I think I miss some other things because it's watching the show gives you so many questions, and you start thinking about that question while something's happening on the screen, and you don't realize it because you're thinking about that.
Well, the talk between the Doctor and Davros was really fun. It was really good. And, talking about the Davros said that the Daleks have one major flaw, and that's mercy for their father. So which is different from other Daleks who wanted him dead. So yes, this is a different group of Daleks. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I thought that what was going on between the two of them was really touching and great.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think it is, but then when you find out what happens, just kind of like kills it, like retroactively, like the pathos of it. Because I didn't recall what ends up happening. So as I was watching it, I thought it was genuine.
Yeah.
So when you find out it's not, and then you find out, well, that wasn't either, it's just kind of like, now if I was to watch this conversation again, I'm like, well, so what? They're both lying.
But what about that acting from Davros' character to be able to go through all those emotions and still bring it back to the villainy?
And through the makeup too.
Yeah.
Through the makeup. And he always did such a good job with no other expression, because his eyes were closed and everything. And now I was actually watching it being happy for the actors. Like, yeah, this guy gets to stretch his chops, man. Mm-hmm. Now that he can open his eyes and all that stuff. And so I thought it was a really fantastically acted scene between the two of them. And I was like buying into it and everything. And I felt like resentful that when he pulled the rug out from him, I was like, "Ah, you jerk."
Yeah, I do agree that is a great acting scene, and it reminded me of Return of the Jedi with Luke and Darth Vader.
He directly quoted it. Like, it wasn't even.
What was that?
It wasn't an accident. Let me look upon you with my own eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
I thought of that.
That's like, that's almost like, try not, do or do not.
And then at the end, Davros goes, "You have Luke. You have Luke." I'm like, what? Where did that come from?
I'm an outlier on this
going
one.
Back to what Brian said in the last episode we did, I think the Master Missy Doctor relationship is real. They do have those underlying emotions for the long time they were friends. And this is more of the Joker and Batman, where they don't like each other, but they know each other well enough. So there's some connection there, but it's also like, no, you know who the other person is. It's a lot more black and white. It's like you can't trust what the other person's saying. So it's more adversary.
Can I just say my thing?
Yeah, sure. Please.
I hate this scene.
Really?
Despise it. Even now that I know that it was all ploy and the Doctor is even playing him while he's playing the Doctor, I despise this scene. I despise it 100%. Davros opening up his eyes. No, that's not how it works. No. I could never buy it. I despise this scene. No. I hate this scene so much. Acted really well. Good for them. They pulled diamonds out. But God, I hate this scene. I don't even like watching it for the podcast. It was like, oh, let me jump over this nonsense. I hate it.
I'm surprised. I'm really surprised because I thought the acting in those two were so great that it overshadowed everything else. Because I remember not liking it the first time either, because I said, okay, I didn't like the Doctor at the time. So it's like, is this just bad writing making the Doctor stupid? Because you don't see any of his plan. You don't see anything coming up. Only the end going, yeah, it was a plan, but you don't see any of the flashback making it or knowing when he was going to thought of it or anything.
Oh, Doctor, am I a good man? The f***?
Well, that was another whole Star Wars thing. It's like poetry.
It rhymes.
It rhymes and comes back. That's what I got going, really? We had a good man and now he's doing it? It's like, wait, it is, but it just seems why? It just seems so...
I'm going to open my eyes. I'm sorry. What? What? 40
You've
years.
Had eyes the whole time?
I mean, 40 years you've had those things. Like, no. And then when they open it, it's like, I guess they couldn't put contacts into the actor because, well, those are pretty healthy eyes. Keeping them closed for 40 years really helped.
That's funny you brought that up because that was the first thing I thought of, and I'm the one that normally brings up the eyes. I'm like, they should have been more bloodshot and red.
To me, it's like, okay, he's playing the Doctor. But the thing is, he's playing the Doctor so stupidly. He's not stupid. So why isn't he realizing the Doctor's going, you're stupid? It's like, I don't think even Davros believes that the Doctor would fall for this because it's just too much. I mean, I thought sharing the little laugh was kind of funny, but
that was a good joke and a good laugh. That was good.
It's like with the Master and Missy, they've earned this kind of stuff. They've known each other since they were little kids. Davros is an evil motherfucker who is nothing but an evil motherfucker every single time we've ever seen him. And to suddenly be him, I congratulate you. I'm so happy for you. I'm going to cry. I'm going to open my... Oh, and then when it was just like, I just want to see the sun with my own eyes.
Right.
Oh, God, it's such crap. Sorry. I know you guys like it, but I think
That's
I'm this
okay.
way. I think it's
That's
this way
okay.
just because I'm surprised anybody likes it.
Well, we win.
I think they were setting up to try to humanize him with seeing him as a little boy. I think that's sort of not one. I think that's one of the main reasons why they did that. So to make this scene pay off, so you see he is a person. I agree with you, Brian, the fact that like you have set up that this would never happen. So I think they had an idea to like, well, how do we have him do this? Well, let's show him as a little boy. And then they also threw in the thing with the Doctor abandoning him at the beginning, but that doesn't even pay off in the very end. So I think the whole reason they showed him as a little boy was to support seeing, to humanize him in this scene. Did it work? Did it not work? Worked for some, didn't work for others. But I think it splitting the story up into 2 episodes hurts that a little bit because it gives you a bit of a breathe. Even though you do see the boy in this episode, it's not fresh on your mind like it was in the other episode. And if you just watch the whole thing through, it would just sort of feel in the mix and maybe you buy into it. Like, is that part of him that was the boy awakening, and all that stuff like that? And whether you doubt it or not, you just kind of waiting and seeing. I will say this. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I did. At the same time, I thought like, oh, okay, I guess they're doing this. All right, I might as well just enjoy what they're doing. Otherwise, whatever. But like, I did think it was like, and then they quoted Star Wars, and I was like, all right, well, maybe Davros thought, like, what a good movie. I'll take from that. But I'm not married to the lore as much as some others, so I just kind of went with it. But then they turned it into a dupe thing. But the one thing I didn't think about is you're right. Like, what I do think that I will totally agree with you is that Davros is smarter to think that the Doctor would actually fall for it. But whatever.
He kind of says that a little bit later. Davros says, I expected to have to like tear you apart to get to your regeneration energy, but you just gave it to me.
Right.
Was it this episode or the previous episode where the Doctor mentions like my arch nemesis Davros and Missy like gets offended at that?
Yeah.
The previous episode.
Previous? I thought so that might have been like a more interesting thing to like play up. It would have been a more interesting like emotional beat for Davros and Missy to have together instead of this fake like double cross from Davros in this moment.
Right. Well, I think the Doctor still considers Master Missy his friend.
I also really liked in Davros's speech, or the Doctor and Davros talk together. Davros, I think, calls the Doctor's compassion like a cancer. That's kind of what Davros's, how he judges the Doctor's compassion is like this thing that's going to get him killed. That's, going to spread and kill his friends. So I just think like the words in it were really good. Like, the emotional beats. I like the actors doing it. But Brian, I don't know, like the whole thing is out of Davros' character, I think, from what I've seen of him throughout the new series and the few classics I've seen.
Maybe he was just, he spent all that money on acting classes. He's got to use it somewhere.
He has nobody to act against because
Yeah, he's got nobody. He can't. I look at the Daleks and they don't give anything back. I can't look into their eyes. I need a better scene partner.
He's got that Kaledi scarf guy, but he just
Right.
breaks up into snakes.
He's real shifty, that guy.
Yeah.
Then everything begins to shake. By regenerating the Daleks, he gave energy to all the Daleks, even the decaying ones in the sewer. They are powering up too, and they don't like the situation. The Doctor and Missy run and confront a lone Dalek who keeps repeating, "I am a Dalek." Unknown to him, it's Clara, but her words are being manipulated into Dalek speak. Every word except for one, mercy. And this stops the Doctor. They open the casing and Clara is revealed. As the Daleks are attacked by sewer Daleks, and the building is collapsing, the Doctor and Clara run to where the TARDIS was destroyed. The area is still surrounded by TARDIS shields, meaning the TARDIS is still there. It survived by being just a little bit out of time sync. It materializes around them and they are safe. The Doctor wonders how a Dalek was able to say mercy. Where would the Daleks have ever learned the concept? Realizing how, he takes the TARDIS back to the little boy in the minefield. He says he's saving his friend and shoots all of the hand mines. The Doctor says there will always be mercy, and together they walk off the minefield.
This ending feels so very Deus Ex Machina, like everything just falls into place. It's like, really, you set this whole thing up and it's paid off this way?
Well, first of all, Davros outsmarting the Doctor, and then the Doctor outsmarting Davros. It reminds me of the scene in The Princess Bride with Wallace Shawn switching the cups. And did I take the poison because this, or maybe I've done that? And it was just like, oh, I outsmarted you. No, I outsmarted you. Well, I outsmarted you outsmarting me.
Yeah.
And then second of all, I love the idea that the Doctor created an evil Davros. He left them there to die, thinking maybe this will make it never happen, like killing baby Hitler. But by going back in the end, that just is like, well, then why did he become Davros? And yes, other things may have happened to him in life. What maybe the thought behind it was, well, it wasn't the Doctor abandoning him after all that started it. Something else happened later, but that just takes the wind out of the sails of the earlier incidents when that's what we thought happened. So they created something with a lot of tension, and then they created something else that just let the air out of the balloon. So I'm on the fence. I'm really on the fence about what. I enjoyed it when I watched it, but it kind of also left me feeling like what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Expanding on the comment of this being just so easy, we brought up Davros to do what? And then we brought up the sewer Daleks to do this. I kind of wish they had tied it back into this is how they created that other faction of Daleks. So when we see the Dalek Civil War with the Imperial Daleks and the other Daleks, like this could be the creation of that division among Skaro, but they never tied it back into that.
Yeah, going back in time and like inferring a paradox or whatever you want to call it. I might be using the wrong term for that, but it really created this expectation of like, some sort of origin.
Yeah.
But instead, they created a whole other like branching storyline, timeline, or whatever that really, in the end, didn't even matter because they kind of like finished it off and got rid of it in the same episode.
Yeah. And even the TARDIS rematerializing after they thought they had blown it up, I'm like, well, I guess everything that gets shot or disintegrated, you can't think that it's gone.
Did we see them blowing it up? I missed that.
Yeah, it all went white.
The
screen went white. It was just all bright.
Yeah.
So you couldn't see what actually happened.
Just like everybody can survive a lightsaber through the stomach and chest.
Right.
You just do.
Well, if it's to the side of their stomach, you'll be.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Well, it cauterizes it, so there's no real bleeding out.
But even the TARDIS thing was something new. It wasn't really out of sync. It was blown up into different parts, whatever. I just wrote down the initials, the HADS, the HADS program that they put in there. And it's like, that's something we haven't seen before, because then it came back in pieces to come together. And that just...
So they have used that before, but not like this. So it felt a little convenient for me. That's why I say it was a Deus Ex Machina ending. Because if we remember, that was used in Blink with the DVD putting into the console, that it allowed that sort of emergency system.
That was just transporting it to somewhere different.
See, that's what I mean. It's like that's different than what's being done here. And then the same thing sort of happened in, I think, Cold War.
Yeah,
where it was,
or the Hunt for Red October one.
yeah. Where it was like in danger, so the TARDIS went somewhere else for the emergency protocol, the HADS.
Which I think, so that's the same thing. That's the same thing this doctor said. It was the HADS. So it's the same thing, but
it's done differently. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like you use this thing before, but you're not using it in the same way. So it's not, to me, it's not the same thing.
Right. It threw me off because then also the force field stays.
Yeah.
It was too much, too contrived.
Mm-hmm.
They did lay in that speech discussion that Brian hates. They did lay the foundation for this in that mercy for their father was their default. They have that one thing that's wrong with them. And then Doctor was also saying everything you are, they are, saying that they got the mercy from that. And then, that's where it all came from. But I think the real beginning of this episode were two people in the writers' room talking, going, remember when River was going to kill because it wasn't completely regenerated yet and it's asking for mercy? One more time, mercy. And they go, why would they have mercy? And that's the whole thing. Why the Daleks had mercy. That was the one through line, all of this. That was the whole episode, was why do they have mercy? Because the Doctor showed it to Davros. That's the whole thing. And then they built all these other things on top of it, which didn't come together right to me.
No.
This episode did not pay off well.
I think that a lot of the things that they put on top of it were very interesting.
Yes.
And they were more interesting than the idea of why the Daleks have mercy. And all these other little things that we've been talking about, like, that's really interesting. Oh, that's really cool. That kind of freaked me out. Oh, wow. And then, like, when we heard the whole thing about mercy was just sort of like, it's kind of like a Hallmark Christmas episode.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Moffat read the comments after Pandorica opens and the Big Bang, and the diehards were saying, mercy? How can you have a Dalek say mercy? They're Daleks. They don't have emotions. They're just rage. They're not going to have mercy. What's he talking about? And he's like, oh, fine. I'll explain it. So
yeah, that could very well be it. And I will say this, despite the shortcomings, I thought, and I got to tell you, like, Capaldi is becoming one of, I say this about, he's becoming one of my favorite Doctors every time we're in that season. So whoever it is, but I am really, really liking who this Doctor is with him.
I agree with what you're saying, is that these individual scenes and sequences are enjoyable, but when you put them together as two, like these two episodes are one story, it doesn't hold up, because as enjoyable as individual scenes are, they don't add to the overall story arc that they're trying to tell. Yeah.
The theme was too heavily buried.
Yeah, and I feel bad because, like, the acting is good, the special effects look great, so I'm like thinking to myself, the production, you guys did a great job, the crew, the sound design, but then the overall product just falls flat sometimes.
Yeah. I think they need to do an outline of what Davros's plan was and what the Doctor's plan was, and put that in a timeline to clarify some of this. Because Davros is he pretending?
Clarify it.
Yeah. So he sends a message to the Doctor, check, and then he wants to get the Doctor to regenerate the Daleks. Doesn't know exactly how to do that, but that's his plan. Was his plan also to become the hybrid because of that? Okay, that's his. The Doctor's plan? Well, he knows Davros' plan. He gives the regeneration energy to the Daleks. He gave Davros Time Lord technology by giving him the sonic screwdriver. So it's like, that was a mistake, but then he knows he has that. So it's just like, how much does the Doctor know?
Yeah.
Did he send the confession dial to get, like what the Karn, Sister of the Karn said, friends will find you. You can, hide from, and in that little extra bit. So that just helped. But they're going to find. So did he think Missy is going to go to Clara? And so he's sending her to protect her, knowing that she won't actually kill Clara no matter what she does to her because of the relationship. So it's just sort of knowing that they're going to come after him. Was that part of the plan? Was it not? It's just so convoluted as to when he made the plan and what plan it was.
We needed to see a small bit where he explains what happened, just like Missy explained how they both didn't die.
Right. I mean, when did he know about the Daleks never dying? Missy knew, and we learned about it there, but he didn't hear about that. So he knew that beforehand.
Yeah, he knew it beforehand.
He had to have that knowledge before.
The idea.
Time Lords know about Daleks, like especially the Doctor and
Well,
Missy.
if Missy knew about it down in the caverns, then the Time Lords knew about it.
The biggest hole is that Davros didn't think of it. I take that as, like you said earlier, somebody said earlier, hubris, that he considers the sewer, the Daleks that are still in the sewer, like so insignificant that it just doesn't occur to him because he's so power hungry and distracted. But
Yes.
but at the same time, if he's supposed to be such a genius, and compared to the Doctor as well, he wouldn't have realized if I took the regeneration energy, it's going to go to everything, including that. Like,
He doesn't see them as Daleks anymore. They're done. He's done with them. They're nothing.
Yeah,
He doesn't even think about them anymore. If he thought about it. But it's Davros, and he's always had blind spots. Same as the Doctor has certain
okay, well,
blind
that's my point.
spots.
That's my point. Like, if it's a blind spot because he sees them as so insignificant. But that's the first thing I thought when I saw it happen. I was like, and you didn't think of that?
Now, the inside of Clara's Daleks cannot be clean. That's got to have Dalek residue.
I know.
Did that come to
She came-
life? Do we have any of that trying to get onto Clara? It's like,
She came out of that thing pretty gunk free.
It was the residual Artron energy that protected her.
Right, yeah.
But also, this is where Clara turned stupid. They showed two different ways of how she thinks and can get to all these conclusions. And all she can say is, I'm Clara, knowing that it comes out, I'm a Dalek.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like,
This
she would
is-
come up with other things or other words you could use.
Yeah, as soon as that was revealed how to escape the casing, I was like, really?
The way they have Clara, she would have deduced that. All you had to do is think.
Yeah, like she didn't
Yeah.
think,
Right,
hey,
to left.
open this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could buy it only because I thought that she did a very good job of being in like that traumatic situation. And then,
Right.
like you get into those and you can't get out, even though it is the easiest thing, but then it's just panic and panic takes over.
Mm.
I totally get that. I totally agree with you if it was earlier on in Clara's run. I
Yeah.
think Clara's been too much for she can think quickly on her feet.
Yeah, no, you're
Well,
right.
since she was sitting down, that's the problem.
Well, it would have been cool to see, even though they aren't the same character, it would have been cool to see that like psychic trauma that like connected to the Clara that was Souffle Girl, that was a doll, in that same
Mhm.
position. Because that would have then helped explain why she was even more in a panic. And that's also maybe what I'm
Right.
bringing to that character, because I know she was Souffle Girl and a Dalek before.
Well, now I'm thinking, as we're having this conversation, maybe it's the panic in her that wasn't allowing her neural thinking of opening to work. And maybe she should have said, I've tried that. And the Doctor goes, take a breath, think about it now more calmly. And then that would have worked.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Because it was obvious that the voice filter was feeding more off emotions than cognitive thought.
Logic, yeah.
This whole Dalek thing, like when before that final scene where they explain the language a little more, I took it as Missy had done something to the Dalek to like as part of her playfulness with Clara, and also to set up this possible showdown between the Doctor and Clara, with the hope of the Doctor destroying Clara.
That would have been
Mhm.
better if that was her doing. That would have made more
Yeah.
sense. Why open didn't work.
Yeah, and then the whole so I was a little disappointed that it was just because of some weird like language thing, when again we've seen Daleks of different stripes who are able to speak very eloquently, that one, right, that was like seeing beauty and
Mhm.
like almost talking poetically, like could say more things than I am a Dalek. And yeah.
Rusty? I think that
Yeah.
was Rusty.
I mean, Stephen Moffat's even said that he did it because he liked the idea, and he just sort of like let the canon go. He's like, it's easy, yes, he can say that. He makes good shows, this, that, the other, writes interesting stuff. But we're sitting here at home, and if we get hit with that, it takes us out of the show. It takes us out of the moment, and then we're not paying attention to the show you're making. So it's not really that these things are loose ends. It's that when there's something that hiccups, we're not invested in your show for a good 15, 20 seconds, or maybe even a minute. And then when we come back, we just missed everything that you tried to do, so it's like,
Yeah.
you gotta, it's like, it's kind of like when you're driving, when you drive around town, you drive differently than if you by yourself than if you have a passenger. 'Cause, you take turns sharper, you do this and that. Like you're a little bit more, especially if there's a baby in the back or whatever. Like you have to consider who is with you in this journey that you take. And I kind of feel like he just wants to wow people more than take care of them.
That's a good way of putting it. What you said reminded me of what Frank said last episode when I was thinking of when I first watched this from last episode. I said to myself, why is there Skaro? It was supposed to be destroyed when the Doctor destroyed both the Time Lords and the Daleks. And then there's watching it again last week, you can miss it where Davros says we rebuilt Skaro. And I'm like,
oh,
why is that such an underplayed line? It should have been.
Missy says it too.
But they say it in a way that is disposable. They don't really say it in a way that says, oh, that's why there's Daleks around on Skaro. I had to really take my notes on that.
I didn't even catch it.
See? So it feels like what you're saying, Josh, that Moffat is writing as if he's driving by himself in a car and he's taking sharp turns where he should be thinking about the babies in the back.
Yeah.
In a school zone.
Yes.
There is one thing that I really liked in this, in that the Doctor went back to Child Davros only once, but they showed it twice and they used it twice. And I thought that was brilliant as the cliffhanger and then what he really did to save his friend. I really liked.
I got two things. And one of them is a Mel Brooks joke. First one. So trillions of people die so that a Dalek can say mercy. Thanks.
Right.
And to keep Clara alive. Okay, I get it. Sure, that's what the Doctor does with Clara now. But what gets me is then the Doctor just turns around and leaves her on Skaros as he goes back to get the kid. It's like, okay, you've done everything you can, and now you're going to leave her on this planet that could kill her in 2 seconds.
But he's got a time machine.
Yes, and Amy waited 12 years and then another 7 for him to come back in 5 minutes.
It's one of those things where whatever the story demand, or Moffat in this case wants, is what we're going to get.
And why does he have a time machine here? He had it in 1138, and then he went with the other person with the other ship and left it behind for the Daleks to find and take to the ship so he'd have it later. That's why I'm thinking he's planned a lot of this stuff. He knew what was going to happen.
That, what you're bringing up, feels like that was something that was left on the editing room floor, because that should have been brought up.
I think especially because we had we had 2 deaths and we had the TARDIS being destroyed, but all of those things, didn't have any actual repercussions. So then, we're used to like a Dalek being able to kill somebody and them staying dead. Now, in this case, it's cool, but once you start breaking those conventions, it gets weirder because the TARDIS
questions.
Yeah. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
So the joke is when the Doctor and Clara are running through the Dalek room and they're all getting sewered. Sorry, you might not find it funny, but the Doctor says, your sewers are revolting. And it's like, you said it, they stink on ice.
Right.
Did someone say that?
That's from History of the World Part 1. It's the French Revolution, and one of the peasants run up and says, "The peasants are revolting. You bet they stink on ice." So again, Moffat using words to mean different things. But that was the first thing I see. Your sewers are revolting. Oh God, they stink on ice.
Well, watching the next on, I think I realized this might have been about where I fell off of the series real time.
I can understand that.
The sunglasses, does that continue? Like that's the
very
device? Okay.
So I'm glad you bring that up, because this is the last time that we see the screwdriver that was introduced in the 11th hour. Now, from now on, we get sonic sunglasses until the other new sonic screwdriver.
With this Doctor or with the 13th?
With this Doctor. He gets it with Bill, I believe.
Yes, he gets it with Bill.
So this is why we don't have that screwdriver anymore, because he gave it to Davros as a kid.
And then it was like, oh, cooties.
It's like if your phone or computer has been in a foreign nation, like you can't trust it anymore. You just got to get a new one.
And we did learn one thing about the Doctor. He is an excellent shot. I mean, just hand
Oh,
after
the
hand,
hand
hand
mines.
after hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
His
had a lot of time
hand-eye
to practice.
coordination is really good.
Yeah,
And I like that one.
Yeah,
gotta
there
hand
you
it to him.
go. I see what you did there. So going through the cast real quick, we have Michelle Gomez as Missy, Jamie Reed Quarrell as Colony Sarf, Julian Bleach as Davros, Joey Price as young Davros, Nicholas Briggs as the voice of the Daleks, and Barnaby Edwards and Nicholas Pegg as the Dalek operators.
I have a question before we go on.
Yes. Yep.
Did they know they were going to put this in theaters? When they
That
were
I
filming
don't
it, when they were
know.
planning it?
That I don't know, but I think it might have been like a promotional thing with BBC.
Yeah,
Where they said these are two-parters, let's release it theatrically.
I don't remember that at all.
Because I'm just thinking they seem to have such a huge cast, especially in the first half of this, last
Yeah.
episode. It was just a huge cast and a lot of the special effects. And it felt like the story was supposed to be bigger, grandiose, to be on the big screen. So it seemed almost like said, yeah, this first one, we're going to promote that way. We're putting it out. But I don't know. I wanted to know if you knew anything.
I'm just going to read this real quick here. A cinema screening of The Magician's Apprentice was held on 2015 in Edinburgh as part of the Guardian Edinburgh International Television Festival. It was also screened along with The Witch is Familiar, and a Q&A followed. So it looks like it was just a promo
Okay.
thing.
Oh, it was a one shot. It wasn't like
Yeah.
the 50th.
Yeah.
I think they've done that before, and since, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. So with this season being mostly two-parters, we have saved our recommendations for the second episode. And if this second episode lived up to the promises promised and set up in the first episode. So The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch is Familiar, who are they good for? Or more specifically, they are good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
So this season is going to be interesting for many reasons, but we don't have a new companion and we don't have a new Doctor. So as for new viewers, it's very hard to come into. Oftentimes we get one or the other, and they can be our proxy for the audience to enter this world. Also with the two-parters, like you're really asking any new viewers to commit to not only one episode, but two at a time if they want to, get the whole story. So first, I will say, I think this was enjoyable. I enjoyed it, although I'm at a very different place than when I first watched it. But I don't think I could recommend it as a entry point to Doctor Who. So I will say that these episodes together are good for a casual viewer of the show. And I do think the second part, as has been said, is a little more even and also has some great acting from everybody involved. So I will say the second part lived up to the first, but as a story, it's for a casual viewer.
I was going to say casual until you mentioned that it's a time commitment. And usually if you're just watching these casually, you're probably not going to watch 2 episodes back to back. I don't know, I think I'm just going to still say casual. The second part, I do agree with you that it lived up. The second part lived up to the first part. I enjoyed the second episode better than I enjoyed the first one. And for casual, yeah, I think you definitely have to know a little bit about this universe to get something out of these episodes. but not know too much about the universe to like really be turned off by the drastic changes. So I'm gonna say that this is best for a casual viewer.
Yeah, I was gonna say fan because I thought like you need a fan to appreciate the nuances of all the things that call back. But I think to a casual viewer, they're still just as interesting, and you won't get as annoyed by knowing how they don't fit because you don't have the lore in your head as much. So I think it's good for a fan, but I think it's best for a casual person who doesn't know what they're not missing.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't know what they're missing. And then it'll make them, I think the things that are good about it are interesting enough to make them curious to say, I think I should watch this show more. And I know if I was just a casual fan and I turned on episode 1, I would just binge it. I would just like, I mean, I don't have time for a 2-hour movie, but I'm going to sit here and watch 4 hours of television.
Does the second half live up to the first? No, absolutely not. I look at the second one going, nothing much happens. The Doctor and Davros are in a room, and Clara and Missy are pretty much in a room, and they don't really mix up. And for the most part, I kind of think you could lift the whole Missy and Clara part out of the entire episode, and you'd be fine. Now, overall rating, I would say fan, with the caveat that it's not for a diehard. So I think if you're a fan, you can enjoy it. If you're a diehard, it's going to make you really pissed.
Well, definitely not for somebody new. I think they hit the ground running on this one. Too many characters, and I would put it in diehard. I was having right away. It was either fan or diehard. And I think I would go for a diehard because you've got to watch it more than once. Get upset with it, go back and see it, and then you can appreciate what's good about it. Because the first episode, I really liked better. I think it had a lot of great ideas. What's going on with him and Davros, and it just had so much promise. And I do not think the second episode lived up to it at all. They killed Clara and Missy, and then you don't see how they escaped. You just see, yeah, they escaped, and now let's tell you how. So even though I thought it was an interesting way of doing it and explaining how she escaped before and tying it all in and why the bands are now destroyed, I mean, it was good. I like that. And there's some good scenes, but I still have to go for Die Hard. You got to like this show to really watch this.
Well, for me, definitely not new. I'm thinking fan or Die Hard just because I've had to go back and watch these, and being a diehard, and I have to kind of figure out these are references. Like when I first watched this as a strictly Modern Who viewer, being new to classic, I did not like the design of the Skaro space medical station thing because I had no idea that was homaging classic Who. So you need to be a diehard to understand that, to understand the Master, Missy, Doctor relationship, because as a new viewer for just Modern Who, or a Modern Who viewer new to classic Who, I did not know any of that relationship at all. To see all the Daleks in that room, that's a diehard, because you're watching classic Who and you know where all those versions of the Daleks come from. And then Davros, we only saw him once in season 4, at the end of season 4. So I had no idea who this character is or was. So again, you gotta be a classic Who watcher to know all these things that Moffat is bringing into this two-parter. So for me, that kind of says it's Die Hard. But then as a fan, I'm thinking you have had to at least watch Modern Who. So that's not necessarily Die Hard, because you need to know who Clara is, you need to know who the Doctor is. And as a fan, you're going to keep watching because you've seen them in previous episodes of Modern Who. So it's weird. It's like he's trying to appease both the diehards and the modern fans, or the classic fans and the modern fans. And that's a tough thing to do. I don't know if that's even a task that he should have said, I want to tackle. It's not something I would want to tackle. But I think I enjoyed the first episode more than the second episode because I was asking questions in the first episode. Like, ooh, I want to see how this resolves. That's really a nice character study of what happens with Davros as a kid to how he becomes this arch villain type of thing.
I don't get why it's called the Witch's Familiar.
Exactly. Me neither.
The Witch's Familiar is Clara. She's
Why?
She's Missy's little.
Oh, like
Little,
okay. Missy's the witch, and
Missy's
Yeah,
the
but the
witch,
whole
but just like she puts Clara in, so it's like sometimes familiars are humans
right.
posing as
Oh.
other things.
Mhm.
So she stuffs Clara into a Dalek, and the Dalek follows her around. Nothing comes of it.
Yeah, but like a title should be. That's not the main plot. That even though it's an
That-
important plot, it's a big plot.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that should be in this episode. I just think it's another misstep.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you all that have seen this season before, are there like high points coming, or do they
No.
all?
I
No.
will say that this DVD was not opened until recently. The shrink wrap has not been open until recently.
Yeah, when Eugene said that there was extras on it, it was like, what extras?
Oh, I forgot to say that. I
There's
forgot to say that.
commentaries?
You need to
There's
be a
commentary.
fan.
Yeah.
You need to be a fan because there are 2 shorts for this. So it's like you got to seek these out because some of it just adds.
It's important.
So, yeah, it's important to the plot. Like Bors, who is not even in the second episode. Like, why is he important in the first episode? You have to watch the short to know that.
Because it wasn't important in the first episode, and that drove me nuts. Going,
Yeah.
this is a real character.
Yeah, I think you could have left that one out. It's the prologue that you really need.
So
I'll
yeah,
have to watch
fan.
But yeah, this is
Because that's what I'm thinking. Die
this
Hard.
is not a
You
good
have to
season.
own it. You have to find it.
And then after this, season 10 is Bill.
Yes.
Yes.
That's where it picks
Phew.
up.
Yeah, after this is Bill.
Okay.
Yay!
And then she gets 1 season.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
just one.
Yeah.
Mostly.
I wish he
one.
had stuck around. Okay, so the prequels, the shorts, quote unquote, that came before this were the prologue, which is more addressing the overall season, and that's how they kind of build it, where the Doctor is on Karn talking to Ohelia, and they are talking about a friend of his and what needs to be done. Frank, anything else?
Well, it was right before the Magician's Apprentice, and I think it could have been put in there, and it should have been put in there. It was an important scene because they were talking about Davros
Mhm.
and the Sisters of Karn. I can't remember her name. Sorry,
Ohelia.
Ohelia. I want to say Ophelia, and I know that's wrong. Knew the Doctor was lying, saying, why are you going? I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. When are you going to go? Soon. It's like she knows, and she knows him. And I think it's a great thing that you get it. This is right after he saw Davros as a kid. So it's like, it's really affecting him that he left Davros and didn't know what to do. And so he goes to Karn to try and, gather himself, think about all this stuff, and knows that he has to go see Davros. And she's like, it could end you. This could be the end for you. You know that. And that's when he hands the dial over saying, you know who to deliver this to. And so you get where the dial came from and why it was delivered. You get more in that.
But what's funny is that first watching it, I thought he could be talking about Ohelia could be referring to Missy and not Davros.
Right.
So in that regard, it's sort of good in that it makes you ask questions. It keeps you wondering. There's a mystery sort of brought about, but I don't think it really pays off.
No, but it is good. And if you watch it afterwards, you know that they're talking about Davros. But I can see the ambiguity. If you watch it first, you can see that it could go to either of those adversaries.
Mm-hmm.
See, for me, this scene takes place after Colony Sark has been on Karn, because he leaves. She turns and says, "Doctor, what have you done?" And then they have this heart-to-heart conversation. That's how I always looked at it. So she already knows it's Davros.
Then it should have been in the episode, like Frank said.
It should have.
It should have. Yeah, totally.
It was a good scene that really needed to be part of the storyline.
For some reason, they just edited it out.
See, if they would have switched it with the cantina, that could have worked. To give you something like, okay, this is going to be different. If they just want to entice you.
Yeah, because all we get from the cantina
to the show.
Because what we get from the cantina is that Sarf is looking for the Doctor, and we get that with the prologue.
Right.
Weird.
And another
Weird
part
choice.
that's in here, which is foreshadowing, is she says that you can hide from your enemies, but you can't
Yes.
hide from your friends. And there
That
are
was a
people
great
who
line.
care about you enough to find you. And then he smirks.
Yeah.
So that's like, did he set his plan up then? Yes, they'll find me. I'll have Missy to help me. And so did he already plan this? That's where my whole idea at the beginning going, what is his plan? When did he know what it was?
Yeah.
You
I'm
got
glad you
involved.
brought that up because that was my favorite line from that short.
Yeah, it's you got to see it. It was a good piece.
All right. And then the doctor's meditation is the doctor's sort of isolation in 1138 AD. And that's where we meet Boris for the first time. And he's just living in that like Viking medieval type of structure castle thing. And he's putting off doing what he needs to do. So he's been meditating and he feels like it's been days, but it's only been like 2 hours or 20 minutes, something like that.
3 hours.
Yeah.
Like how many days have been here?
Yeah.
3 hours, almost.
So he has to meditate in order to do this thing that he has to do. And to put it off and to stall, he asks Bors to get water from a well and then do all these other tasks.
Build a well.
Yeah.
Visitor center.
And there was another funny line there where, the Sisters of Karn said I had attention deficit, that I wasn't paying attention kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, that was just a good little line. And still the doctor trying to figure out, I don't want to face what's coming. So he has all that, but that he knows he has to. So it was good, but I can see definitely with Brian that it didn't need to be in there. It was a good additional thing. But it doesn't explain the tank or the sunglasses or the guitar or anything. So it has nothing really to tie in with the story.
Except,
so
what's his name?
Boris?
Boris?
Yeah. He says to the doctor, if it's your last night, you can't spend it meditating. Let's, go out on a high.
Yeah. It goes
And
back
for the
to
doctor, this is the high.
Yeah, that goes back to what Josh brought up. If this is your last day, you're gonna kind of party or check things off your bucket list.
Yeah. He's also doing what the 10th Doctor did.
Yeah.
The Ood called to him and he's like, no, not yet. And he went off and had a bunch of adventures and then showed up.
Or so-called specials. So yeah, maybe these two things are sort of push it into Die Hard, but ultimately, again, I think fan is what it is for me.
And to me, it's more of the Die Hard because you'd have to have the disc, or you know where to go or where they are. Yeah. And I think generally the fans wouldn't look for it unless it's rightly available or easier to find. I thought they also wrote Bors really well. He became a full character, and he was just such a nothing. It's like.
It was so sad to see what they did with him in The Magician's Apprentice.
Yeah. But this he was really good. I was just surprised, and I really liked that character and go, that's companion material. I would like to see him evolve, and become a more of a modern character through all this interaction with just the future life of what's out there. I thought he'd be a really interesting, fun companion.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you said earlier in a previous episode, Alburn, that what if we got a companion that was not modern, from out of modern time? I think Bors is definitely a good candidate.
Yes.
At the end of the doctor's meditation, when the doctor is talking to Bors, the doctor says that he was going to find a bookshop, but instead found a war. And that's where
that's where I got
Magician's Apprentice, the doctor tells Davros, I was looking for a bookshop. What war is this?
Man.
Yeah.
So then I guess,
That's
then I'm again, now I'm leaning to what you said, Frank, that if you have to watch these, it's more Die Hard because of that.
You get more out of it. So.
That's why I'm on the fence. But again,
I was too. I think we're very similar in this one, so that's good.
Yeah. So my gut is going to tell me fan. I'm going to go fan. So that wraps up The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
Additional music is by Damiel Paggio.
Additional music by Paul Ohlers.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn, and you can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
Or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, subscribe to us on Amazon Music,
And then ask your Amazon device to play your podcast subscriptions.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert, Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.